Welcome back to the studio. The Dubai Business Classics is back. This is the podcast where we showcase and celebrate Dubai-based businesses and entrepreneurs. Today, we'll be talking about the events industry, and I have with me Ali McDonald. Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. Ali, you've been in Dubai forever, right? How long have you been here?
Mid-90s. Came in around 96. Yeah, I went to school here.
Okay, so you pretty much grew up in Dubai, great part of your childhood?
15, 16 years old. Yeah, it's changed a lot.
How was it for a teenager from the UK all of a sudden to land in Dubai back in those days?
Oh, it's completely different. I mean, I grew up in northeast Scotland, a place called Aberdeen, oil capital of Europe. This is why the move over here with my parents. And in northeast Scotland, it rains all the time. It's very windy, very cold. And I remember coming over in the middle of summer to check out schools. Thought the plane engines were still on as we stepped off the plane. It was boiling and just totally different. Looked a bit more like America than the UK, and buzzing. Even then, had that atmosphere, the buzz that we have now on a smaller scale.
So was it exciting, the move, or were you kind of, oh, my friends, I want to be back home?
I think initially, obviously, all of that like you would have as a teenager, but when you come here, the place is just, electrifying. 5-star hotels, marble, great cars. As a 15-year-old guy, you quickly acclimatize to how awesome the place is. And even in those days, you still had the sort of sensation like a new building was popping up, a new thing was coming, something was changing. You never really had this kind of sedate feel in Dubai, even though nothing like it is now. It's changed a great deal.
Yeah, that's often what I think about some of my friends that grew up in Dubai. I think the feeling of almost growing up in a different country happens as much to the people that come after as the ones that actually grew up here, because it was a totally different place, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And, even people that have come later on, although it's much more international city now, it's like a London, Paris, New York, the expatriate community is tight. It doesn't take long to make friends. You get integrated very quickly. So I think you begin to feel like Dubai's home extremely quickly.
Yeah, that's
which
true.
is a lovely thing.
That's true. People are very welcoming. I think that's because a lot of people came alone without their families. Everyone's trying to make friends and to create their little group, and that I think fed a lot into the social life, all the entertainment that we have available in Dubai today, and even the events industry.
Of course, business in general. I would say the same kind of openness and welcomeness that you experience as an individual making friends here applies in business as well. I think people are more open to helping you here than potentially in Europe or some of the more developed sort of countries. I certainly find when I bring, say, some business people from London here to explore opening up in this town, they're always blown away by how accommodating people are and how helpful they are. Mm-hmm. Particularly considering often they don't want anything in return. They're just helping you for no real benefit.
One day for me, tomorrow for you, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So you did your high school here in Dubai.
Yes.
And after that, did you go back to the UK for any more studies, or did you just stay here the whole time?
No, I finished college here, and then went back for university in the UK, which wasn't a very good fit for me, so I didn't stay too long in uni. And at that time, it was the sort of internet.com boom. Definitely the market, even in Scotland, was flying. So it was pretty easy in those days, probably less so now, for someone at my age then, which would have been around 19, 20, to step into a job, to get that first opportunity. So as much as uni wasn't for me, it was certainly easy to commence my career early. I'm sure it's a lot harder for kids these days to do that, but
especially in that type of industry, kids were seen to be more knowledgeable than elder people, right?
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
It was very different then.
So then you came back to Dubai.
I did in the UK. I started out in internet services and internet marketing, and I did a couple of years in the UK, and which developed from that into more data analytics, database marketing. So I did about 2 or 3 years in the UK, understanding the marketing world, understanding the data world, and then moved back at around 22, 23 to the UAE.
And when you came back, did you start doing business on your own? I know that you've started several businesses. Was this the moment where it all starts, or did you work for someone else at the beginning?
No, it was a funny scenario because I actually came out. My parents had an event agency, mainly specializing in entertainment, but also delivering events in the traditional sense. And the day I arrived was to support them for 1 year only with a couple of parts of their business, and then head back to the UK or go on the next adventure. You know, I've grown up in Dubai.
The same story that
you hear over and over, right?
Correct.
And the very first night, I flew in the morning. We were having a big dinner with some family and friends in the evening. And I sat next to a sort of investor who is, he'd come out from London. He wanted to create an investment business here, and he was investing in small to medium-sized businesses. And I just so happened to sit next to him at dinner. He'd already had a chat with my father at the time and said, it'd be cool to try and do something in events. So over the course of that dinner, we discussed a few ideas, a few things he liked. And then, the next week we were having meetings regarding, a few of those options and which ones could work, running some business plans. And so it was really immediate that I was off on my own, commencing.
So what was the first business?
So the first business was Wicked.
Yes, which is still going today.
Yeah, Wicked's still going and flourishing. And that business initially, it was, it's sort of morphed and changed and evolved quite a lot over the years. But initially, that business was supposed to be a creation of a sort of temporary event and entertainment venues. So the idea was to purchase temporary structures, to install them in specific locations, and then to host, whether it's an entertainment, a concert, a conference in these venues. Some of them would stay in situ, the other ones maybe come down and up. But we had some hotel partners, we had a few people interested in doing that. So the original business plan for that company was actually to be very much in one place.
Okay. And what has it evolved to?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't a choice, really. The first sort of hotel partner we had, which was a very large chain here, did the first project and then realized that they didn't really want to be fixed to one partner in that respect. They wanted to allow people to come in and do what they needed to do at that location. So within one project, this big investment that we put into this infrastructure became a little bit more of a liability than it was, a few months before.
Yeah.
So we as we have over the years in many occasions, we had to pivot the business into something different, into something that, could be used in many different locations. Thankfully, the nature of what we do with temporary infrastructure allows us to do that, but it certainly wasn't the initial plan.
Yes.
So we had to adapt pretty quick.
So the business is now how old? Wicked?
So Wicked was founded in 2017. Sorry, not 2017, 2007.
2007.
So it's getting old.
Yes.
But as it started in pretty much a temporary structures business, that's kind of where we started, and we stayed in that space for a few years as we kind of got bedded in, and then you begin to realize the market needs certain different types of structures. Maybe on an ongoing basis, there's more of a requirement for more normal things, because we looked at initially at quite interesting types of structures in the marketplace, and we kind of pivoted the business to be a bit wider and service more client bases. And once we'd done that, the business sort of then further evolved because, when you're building a temporary structure, you often need linings and you need fit out and you need furniture and the guys need toilets and naturally
access.
Yeah, you begin to sort of broaden and broaden and broaden the business until, today we're a much broader, much more diversified business, but still diversifying.
Yeah, which is still, I think, probably still delivering the same end product, but just integrating a lot of the other components that at an initial stage maybe some other suppliers were doing.
Correct. So the integration part and the broadening of the scope, so you can do more in house potentially, or you offer more services to the client, is one piece. But then more recently, probably since COVID, we've begun to understand that there's a need in industry, not just in events, but in sort of business solutions for what we do. So during COVID, we developed a temporary building system, which can be rated for permanent use. It can be rated for temporary use. And now we're working with construction companies, car companies, all sorts of different, what we would class as industrial clients, and building out buildings that will stay in place for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years. They like the rapid deployment that we can achieve. They like the flexibility, and often it can end up being much more cost effective.
Very good. So for temporary structures, do you think that the seasonality of the events industry played an important role in the need for temporary structures rather than permanent? Because, there's such a volatility in terms of the desire and the demand for events all concentrated in a certain period of the year?
I mean, without question. Our businesses, particularly the Wicked business, probably still deliver around 60% of our turnover in the fourth quarter. And even within that fourth quarter, 2 months is predominantly where those events lie. So we have a huge seasonal issue in the business. It would be great to think that we could have an even 12 months. We would definitely find that easier for ourselves, but it's not the case. The first quarter and the fourth quarter are by far the heaviest, with the fourth being significantly larger.
And like the events industry has exploded in the last, I would risk saying, maybe 15 years. Mm-hmm. I still remember that when I first arrived to Dubai in 2008, there was concerts every now and then. And I remember, for instance, Joe Cocker was in town, and everyone goes and sees Joe Cocker. A lot of people never even heard of his music, but because there was a concert, everyone would go. Now we're completely spoiled for choice. And I remember that at some point we had stuff like Amy Winehouse at the Trade Center and Eric Clapton in Abu Dhabi on the same night. Mm-hmm. How is it? Where has all this demand come from?
Well, I think the population's obviously increased significantly. Not just in Dubai though. Abu Dhabi is growing massively at the same time. And then on top of that, we've got this transient population of tourists, business people, etc., in and out of this country always. Mm. So the volume of people to attend these events is significantly larger. But I think as well, it's in many ways easier to justify taking that risk on bringing that talent or that artist into the country alongside major events. And if you think about it, the major events, whether it be the Dubai Rugby Sevens, the Formula One in Abu Dhabi, various golf tournaments, they all concentrate around the same time. So it's possibly the reason why we end up with so many choices all at that same time. Yes. And then, of course, over the summer, we have an extremely limited choice there.
Yeah, correct. And I think that also, in terms of venues, in the busy parts of the year, there's no venues left. Like everything is booked. And does that open opportunities again for temporary structures to do it in places that were less obvious a few years ago?
I think it's that there are elements like that. Expanding existing venues, for instance. If Dubai World Trade Center can accommodate the growth in an exhibition, you will see temporary structures going up to meet that demand, because obviously the exhibition organizer wants to keep growing their show. If they run out of space, I think they have around 100,000 square meters at the Legacy Trade Center, and if they're going to grow, they have to do it that way, unless Trade Center commits to build more and more halls, which isn't always possible.
Maybe now in the expo side.
Of course, and there is a planned migration, I think, to do more there, and it makes sense with the new airport, and things change. I think the introduction of the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi and the Coca-Cola Arena in Dubai, they provide not only these fixed homes for certain types of entertainment, sporting events and things like that, it also makes it, I guess, cheaper on the organizer to have all that infrastructure in place. Back in the day, I'm sure you've been to many concerts and things at Media City Amphitheatre, which still happen, but it's quite complicated to piece together the calendar of projects there to make it cost effective to be able to have all of these different shows. Fixed infrastructure in that sense does make sense.
I can think of Guns N' Roses, for instance, at Autism Rocks.
Yeah.
Up in Al Ain Road. There was so much people there that the traffic was absolutely insane, and they had to bring the bands on a 4x4 through the desert in order to be there on time. So there's the ability to kind of like create new venues, new places, and then be able to solve all the problems that come with venues that are not trialed and tested. Because going to Etihad Arena or to Coca-Cola Arena is like a seamless experience. You go there, parking is easy. You walk 2 minutes and you're at the door, and everything flows. And then at the end of the show, you come out, and in 5 minutes you're back in your car.
And this is the misconception with people. They think if something's close, it's going to be easier. In the case of the Coca-Cola Arena, Etihad Arena, that's the case. But many venues don't have the correct access for these big concerts, and it becomes a nightmare. We attended one Green Day concert a few weeks back at the Expo site, and it's the first time I've attended anything other than Expo and COP at that site. Mm-hmm. And what interested me was how easy it was to get in and out. I live in Dubai Marina, hopped on the metro, arrived, there's a small train waiting for you, get
5 stations, you're there.
It was incredible. And it also gave me a glimpse of what that location is going to be like in the future. I mean, of course, they have to build some more hotels, they have to build more residential, people have to move in, it might take 3 years, 5 years, but you got this feeling like this is going to be a place.
Yes.
And that's something I think, Dubai and Abu Dhabi do well, they build legacy.
Yeah, and I think there's longevity to the plans, and there's cohesion. It's like they are building Expo City with a master plan that is linked to the one of the new airport, that is linked to the one of Palm Jebel Ali, that is linked to everything is working well together. And I think that also makes this place quite unique when it comes to delivering these things that take into consideration all aspects of the use and of the living in these areas. I think that's quite cool. I wanted to go back a little bit in time, and I want to ask you about other businesses. You've been part of other ventures, right?
Correct. Yeah. So obviously the first business, as I said before, was Wicked, which has been going things since 2007. In 2010, off the back of supply chain issues, off the back of just noticing a problem in the market, we decided that temporary cooling, or should I say temperature control, largely cooling in this region, but was an area that we were struggling with the supply chain. We were struggling with the service levels. So interestingly, I'd gone to my fellow competitors, who we had a good relationship, most of them, and floated the idea of having a business that could service us all, and specifically at the time focusing on temperature control. And that's where Flow came from, which is a new launch, separate entity. The fact that we would be working, in essence, with competitors of Wicked made sense to have a separate brand, specialty. So, Flow launched in 2010. First job was the Barasti Beach Stadium, the big dome for the World Cup in 2010, South African World Cup, and it went very well. The temperature control element was needed. We worked with a lot of different companies, not just tank companies, but predominantly in the early days, it was tank guys. And then the logical progression for that business, because with temperature control, you end up with a lot of power distribution, cable, etc. We sort of segued into the distribution cable market, working a lot on, wider overlay projects, providing power for, kitchens, stages, basically anything that, in the early days, anything we were cooling, we'd also do the rest of the power. And then latterly, we moved further into power only with certain applications. And then in about 2015, we went the full hog into purchasing generators, power company. Now the business of Flow is a 50-50 split, really, between temperature control and power.
Wow.
And is as big a business as the Wicked business.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In terms of turnover, in terms of coverage, staff members, they're pretty much on a par now.
That's very good.
Yeah.
So does that mean double the headache, or does it mean less headache because the problems are more spread and you're less reliable on one company to function well?
I would honestly say there are far more variables and there's a sort of more quirkiness to the temporary structures side of the world. So I'd say that Flow is the more dependable business. It requires significant investment to embark upon a business like Flow. Everything costs a lot. It's a very capital intensive business, but that has its benefits. It creates a bit of a moat.
Even to move around, like it's heavy equipment.
Yeah, it's a very different discipline, but I would say it feels more kind of reliable, dependable. Than maybe there's a little less sort of creativity, more engineering in the Flow business. So they complement each other quite well. Wicked is still a big client to Flow, which is quite a nice thing as well. But certainly they have very different dynamics. If you were to walk into each office, you'd very much feel different cultures.
How big are the teams?
In the Flow side, we have around 80 people. I think on the Wicked side it's similar. So we have that sort of level of staff within the two businesses, based both here and Saudi Arabia.
Very good. Now, I know that some of these people that work with you have been with you for a very long time, and some of them maybe a bit less, but you are like longtime friends. So I feel like there must be quite a big effort to keep a good company culture, because I think some of the guys that are with you are there from the very beginning, right?
Yeah. First of all, there's a little luck. You need everybody to, for instance, stay in this country. But we have been fortunate. We've created quite strong culture, and we don't break that. To sort of backtrack on that slightly, in 2017, a huge international company came in and became the majority shareholder of our businesses here. And even they could sense the culture, sense what it felt like to be a part of Wicked, part of Flow. And were very adamant they wanted to maintain that. And I think that company culture, it's quite free-spirited. There's quite a nice vibe. I think people don't feel too controlled or pressurized. They're given the freedom to do their jobs.
Which I feel like it's one characteristic that usually people that work in the events industry, they look for.
Yeah.
They're not your typical corporate type of mindset, even though like the events industry has grown so much and has become so corporate, people still have that the show must go on type of attitude, right? And if you're not working with friends, if you're not on the same page, then that becomes very hard to deliver.
It's a stressful environment.
Yeah.
The event date doesn't move. When we work in our construction projects on the Wicked side, as I was explaining earlier, sometimes the schedule moves. Something gets knocked back. It's cool. We'll change the handover date. With an event, it's fixed. You're delivering on that date, no matter what.
So you just reminded me of something with the dates not moving. The dates don't move, but a lot of times the venues do, like with the shortest notice imaginable. Mm-hmm. How many times do you come across this, and how do you mitigate this happening? I can think, for instance, one year it was the air show. They always have tier one artists for the closing ceremony or the gala dinner or whatever it's called, and because it looked like it was going to rain, they changed the original venue into the Coca-Cola Arena with like 2-day notice.
Yeah.
And then you go there and you wouldn't even guess that like it was not planned to be there in the first place. How does this work?
I mean, you have to figure out a way somehow. But you have to understand that even our normal business, things that don't move or change, we can get a call from a client this evening and be on site tomorrow morning. That's the nature of the beast for us. So, you have to adapt. We have a great supply chain. Is one thing. Our supply chain we've developed over all those years. We still work with the majority of the same suppliers that we've always worked with. They've grown up with us. The phone's being picked up at 1 o'clock in the morning if we need somebody to help us at 3. It's a very, very tight community in the events industry here.
Yes,
and even as competitors will help each other.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And tell me one thing. How about human capital? Do you think that this market is well supplied?
Yeah. I think it's not only well supplied, but I run and have been to golf tournaments all over the world. For instance, I would say that a Middle East golf tournament is probably as high spec as it gets.
Yes.
I'd say we're market leaders in the Middle East now in certain types of events, in certain types of deliveries.
The Dubai Rugby Sevens is the best sevens tournament in the world.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think we are now in a position where we can actually claim that, if we're not the best, we're up there in the top echelons of event delivery.
It looks good on any freelancer's CV to say that he spent a couple of years in Dubai, right?
Of course. And, the different markets have matured at different stages. I mean, for me personally, what it's felt like to me is, Dubai was probably first. And then, Abu Dhabi really came online in a big way. And then that matured. And now the UAE as a whole feels very mature as an event market. Mature supply chains, lots of good suppliers. Clients are beginning to give more and more time in planning, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course...
Doha had a period there when they finished the Qatari National Convention Center, which was state-of-the-art facility, and they attracted a lot of UN conferences there. And then this was already, I think, with the view to deliver the FIFA World Cup. At the same time, Dubai was already preparing for the Expo. So I think that there's been a few places in the region that have had their moment to shine, but Dubai seems to persist. Do you think that Dubai is still the number one destination when it comes to world-class events, or do you think that maybe Saudi is knocking on the door trying to come closer? Or past even, I don't know.
I think the UAE has become more and more the UAE in recent years. You know, before it was very much Dubai, Abu Dhabi. The COP event was won from a committee via Abu Dhabi, Masdar, ADNOC. You know, that was won in Abu Dhabi, and there was a decision. You know, the best place to put this is the Expo site in Dubai. So I think the UAE is becoming a more joined up entity in the world of events. And I think for sure, if you were to consider the UAE as a whole, it's still the event.
Yes,
powerhouse of the Middle
I think
East.
that there has to be a lot of joint planning, because it's not by chance that you have the Dubai Rugby Sevens and then the next weekend you have the Formula One or vice versa. I can't remember now, but you have like a series of events between Abu Dhabi and Dubai that obviously they must be done in a way that they complement each other for the whole season instead of competing.
Of course. I mean, in terms of volume of events, Saudi is obviously, huge at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's a huge
bigger
country.
Yeah, much bigger internal market.
It's a very, very big country. And we work extensively in Saudi now. And it's impressive. They're building facilities. They're building everything. They're really, really trying to catch up, because there was, they've only really started this outward event thing in recent years, and it takes time. But the level of production, the quality of events they're bringing, it's phenomenal.
Yes.
Of course, it's going to take time to get the supply chain, the agencies, everything to build up correctly there. But it's phenomenal, the volume that's going on there. Everybody's coming in, international players from the other GCC countries.
How long have you set up there?
We've been officially set up there since just before COVID, but we've been trading in Saudi, doing ad hoc projects for many years. There's always been something or other going on that we've been involved with. And then, of course, we were set up in Qatar, and we still are, to deliver the World Cup. And we had a big presence on the World Cup, and it was a phenomenal project too. I mean, the blockade situation in Qatar probably, as you alluded to earlier, slowed things down a little bit.
Yeah.
But now they're coming back. They've got they had the AFC. They're bringing more and more things. Arab Cup football's coming back again.
Yeah.
There's a Formula One. Qatar is not slowing down itself.
Yeah, no, for sure, and they've always been very active with other types of sports. I think they had a handball World Cup there not that long ago. So there seems to be also some distribution or at least some specialization in certain areas from different countries. I feel like, for instance, when it comes to eSports, Saudi is doing the biggest effort.
Yeah, they have a big directive on that. I think they have a minister of eSports, don't they?
I'm not sure.
I think they do. Look, I think one thing we haven't had in the region that could come is a sort of cohesion amongst the GCC states when it comes to touring acts, bands, or maybe even other things to do with sport that allow infrastructure athletes, performers to capitalize not just on one trip, but moving around the region.
Some of the promoters are trying to build several regional locations into their circuits, right?
Which probably wasn't possible 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it might have been Qatar and UAE. Now you've got the element of Saudi Arabia, potentially Oman. It begins to become more viable to bring a big name if you can spread the costs in those ways.
So I know that in the events industry, there is always a great component of client entertainment, because obviously it's an industry that has access to a lot of venues and a lot of different events. Which one is for you, as an attendant, the favorite event that you always look forward to be in?
Look, we're very proud of all the events we do. I think because it was the first big event in the international scale that we won as businesses, which is the DP World Tour Championship, European Tour, the culmination of the European Tour season.
And you're also a big golfer.
Big golf fan.
Yeah.
So I think that one always has a bit of a sweet spot because, we host everyone. It was the first big chance we got from a big client like the European Tour, and they put a lot of trust in us. So then we have put a lot of effort into their project and projects. Actually, we do more than just that one with them. So certainly, I think if you spoke to fellow suppliers, I know you yourself have come. We host a lot of people there. We make a big deal out of it,
and it's always fantastic. A fun day.
It's a great day. Yeah. It's very, very nice for the family, not just adults. But look, I go to everything. I spent all days at the Dubai Desert Classic. I spent all days at the Rugby Sevens this year. I traveled down to Abu Dhabi, attend Abu Dhabi Golf, Abu Dhabi Tennis. We're involved in so many different things, and very fortunate to be able to attend them. And we're very lucky and spoiled.
That's true.
You could be at something every week, and it's still unique and different and fun. But certainly that one is the one that we put a lot of focus and
nice
energy into.
And for the future, what's creating a bit of buzz at the moment? What are you looking forward to? What's that you can share? Obviously, what is something that you're planning to bring to the business or to the markets? Any new ideas, building on the existing structures?
So if we start with the Wicked business, there's a huge emphasis for us now on design, both from a structural point of view, but also from a interior design point of view, to really push the envelope when it comes to being super creative in the structure, around the structure, how a guest experiences, integrating technology, moving up a whole other level to where we've been before. And that goes for event projects and non-event projects, as I alluded to with the showrooms, with the property sales centers. We're really pushing hard to become more of an architecture firm in the temporary structure world.
Nice.
With interior design. So that's been a lot of work, integrating the right softwares, employing the right people, putting in the right methodologies. Obviously, finding the clients is not easy either. So that's a real push for the Wicked side, and it's pretty huge. On the Flow side, we've obviously got this element of sustainability that comes into play. We have a lot of diesel generators, we have a lot of equipment, and we've got to find ways to demonstrate what the future is going to look like. It's not necessarily possible from the offset to change the world.
And you feel like clients are starting to pay attention to that particular detail, or is it your initiative that came first?
A bit of both. I think our initiative came from understanding the tech, understanding what was out there, what it would look like in the future, realistically what could be implemented at different times. Clients are now really pushing. It's difficult to generate an ROI from that at this stage, but I think what our clients want to see is, take this area of the project, demonstrate what the future looks like. Whether that's hydrogen generators, whether it's batteries, whether it's solar, a combination of the three, whether it's reduction in the power consumption anyway. There's many ways to kind of, in a condensed way, show what can be possible. And in certain cases, some of this technology, some of these pieces of equipment are far too expensive currently to be justifiable on a large scale.
Yeah.
But in the future, as with anything, the prices will come down, things will change, and we need to be right there understanding it to be able to deliver for the future. And I feel like we're doing a good job. We're working hard there.
Probably trial and error, developing or at least adhering to the right technologies and the right tendencies that are going to be able to allow you not only to comply with these goals, but also something that makes commercial sense.
Yeah, and we work we don't just work regionally. We work on through our sort of new parent company, GL Events, we work across the world on power projects, on overlay projects, and each region has its own sort of specificity when it comes to demands regarding sustainability, and also with the existing legislation that they have around what can and can't be used. So for instance, if you look at the UK, there's a far more stringent set of rules around the type of generator you can use. Mm-hmm. That generator is a lot more expensive than the sort of generator you would purchase in the Middle East. That makes the battery become closer to the generator in terms of an ROI, in terms of what you can charge a client, in terms of what they're expecting to pay. So that's why you see more and more and more of these sustainable technologies coming in, because the encouragement and also the legislation that's put in place in those countries pushes towards that.
Yeah.
And, you know, eventually we'll see that in the Middle East become more and more of a thing too. And you will see more and more technological kind of breakthroughs. You'll see events being delivered with far less fuel consumption or cleaner fuel. It's a progression. That
would also be partially driven by the manufacturers. So if they are, the people developing these new technologies are based in countries that have certain incentives, certain legislations, then the outputs of what they're creating and what they're pushing and producing in scale and then pushing in the market will have a consequence down the stream.
Of course. So it kind of sits with everyone a little bit. The client kind of needs to demand it and push for it, maybe spend a little more for it. Suppliers like us, we need to invest in it, and we need to kind of, you know, do our bit. And then, of course, the governments need to either offer incentives or they need to put legislation in place that pushes us all a little harder to move in that direction.
Cool. Like, I got one final question. It is quite obvious when you hang around people from the events industry that they always have the best gossip. They always seem to know what is going to happen in many different areas, not only kind of the new real estate launches, the new cars that are going to be like, is it like because events people are so exposed to so much knowledge, so many trade shows? So where do you think all this thing comes from?
I have no idea. I mean, we are a social bunch and we do like to talk. So maybe the knowledge and the news spreads a little bit more quickly around our industry than most.
Very good. It must be. Ali, it's been a pleasure to have you with us. I wish you all the best for your business, for the future. I hope it continues to go strong and to build on the legacy that it has gotten the market used to. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a really, really good pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Pedro. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching another episodes. We'll continue to bring on the most interesting guests from Dubai to tell us the stories about the industries that they work in, and hopefully you'll continue to help us grow. Thank you very much.